In 1960, pilots were dying at an alarming rate. Not from weather, not from mechanical failure, from their second engine. The very thing that was supposed to save them was killing them instead. Here's what happened when a conventional twin-engine aircraft lost power on one side. The remaining engine, still roaring at full thrust, created a violent asymmetric force that yawed the aircraft toward the dead engine. Below a certain airspeed, no amount of pilot skill could overcome physics. The aircraft would roll inverted and slam into the ground. They called it the VMC rollover. And in the decades following World War II, it claimed pilots with terrifying regularity. Insurance companies charged less for twins than singles back then. Everyone believed 2 engines meant twice the safety. Nobody bothered to check the accident statistics. But Cessna's engineers in Wichita had been watching, and in February 1961, they unveiled something that looked unlike any aircraft the industry had ever seen. Twin engines, twin booms, a propeller in front, another in back. They called it the Skymaster. It promised to make engine failures a non-event, to eliminate the deadliest characteristic of conventional twins forever. Instead, it exposed an uncomfortable truth about aviation that the industry still refuses to accept. Picture a twin-engine aircraft climbing through 200 feet when the left engine suddenly dies. In a conventional twin, what happens next defies everything pilots believe about redundancy. The remaining engine, still producing full power, creates an immediate asymmetric thrust. The aircraft yaws violently toward the dead engine. Simultaneously, the wing on the failed side loses lift from the missing propeller wash, while the opposite wing generates more. The result is a rolling, yawing motion that intensifies with every passing second. A pilot's instinct screams to counter the roll with aileron. Fatal mistake. That downward aileron on the dead engine side creates more drag exactly where you need less. The spiral tightens. Below a critical airspeed called VMC, no amount of rudder can overcome the physics. The aircraft rolls inverted and impacts the ground. They called it the VMC rollover. And in the decades following World War II, it killed trained pilots with horrifying regularity. Here's what makes this worse. Everyone in aviation believed twins were safer than singles. Insurance companies charged lower premiums for twin-engine aircraft. The logic seemed unassailable. 2 engines meant if one failed, you simply flew home on the other. Nobody bothered examining the accident statistics. When aviation journalist Dick Collins finally did, the findings shocked the industry. Twins were not safer than singles after an engine failure. They were actually involved in more fatal accidents. The very redundancy that was supposed to save pilots was killing them instead. Multi-engine training became a death sentence for instructors and students alike. The FAA's flight test guides allowed VMC demonstrations at dangerously low altitudes. Pilots practiced the maneuver that killed them. But in Wichita, Kansas, Cessna's engineers had been watching this carnage unfold. By 1959, Cessna dominated light aircraft manufacturing, delivering 3,564 airplanes that year alone. They already built the successful Cessna 310 conventional twin. They understood the problem intimately. Their solution reached back to aviation's earliest days. The Caproni CA-1 of 1914 had demonstrated that placing engines on the aircraft's centerline eliminated asymmetric thrust entirely. If one engine failed, the remaining one still pushed straight ahead. No yaw, no roll, No VMC rollover. On February 28, 1961, Cessna's answer lifted off for the first time. Twin engines, twin booms, one propeller pulling, another pushing. It looked like nothing else in the sky. That was precisely the point. The Model 336 entered production in May 1963. Fixed landing gear, two 195 horsepower Continental engines, 6 seats. It worked exactly as Cessna promised. Lose an engine and the aircraft simply slowed down. No yaw, no roll, no desperate fight for control. But the aviation community was skeptical. The aircraft looked strange. That rear propeller spinning behind the cabin, those twin booms extending backward like skeletal fingers. Pilots called it the Mixmaster, the push me, pull you. They laughed. Cessna sold just 195 units before discontinuing it. The 336 was underpowered, widely acknowledged as a slug. The concept was sound. The execution needed work. Then came February 1965. Cessna unveiled the Model 337 Super Skymaster. Retractable landing gear, more powerful 210 horsepower engines, a redesigned dorsal air scoop to cool the rear engine. This was the aircraft Cessna had envisioned from the beginning. The FAA did something unprecedented. They granted the Skymaster its own class rating, limiting pilots who trained in it to centerline thrust aircraft only. This wasn't a restriction. It was recognition that the Skymaster was fundamentally different, easier to fly, safer to master. A pilot could earn multi-engine privileges without ever confronting the deadly VMC rollover. At $39,950, the Skymaster suddenly made twin-engine flying accessible to pilots who had only dreamed of redundancy. But here's what nobody anticipated. Halfway around the world, the United States Air Force was losing aircraft over Vietnam. The aging O-1 Bird Dog, a single-engine spotter plane, couldn't survive the increasingly hostile environment. Forward air controllers needed something with more speed, longer range, better survivability. In 1966, the Air Force commissioned Cessna to militarize the Skymaster. They called it the O-2, nicknamed the Oscar Deuce. The centerline thrust that made the aircraft forgiving for civilian students made it perfect for FAC pilots who needed to focus on ground observation rather than fighting asymmetric handling. The transformation was remarkable. Wing pylons for rockets and flares, observation windows cut into the fuselage, military avionics replacing civilian radios, approximately 450 O-2s deployed to Southeast Asia. FAC pilots flew low and slow over hostile territory, marking targets with white phosphorus rockets for strike aircraft screaming in behind them. The work was dangerous beyond imagination. 178 O-2s were lost in Vietnam. 84 FAC crewmen died in combat. The businessman's airplane had become a weapon of war. But back in the civilian world, a different kind of problem was emerging, one that Cessna's engineers never anticipated when they eliminated asymmetric thrust. The rear engine couldn't cool itself properly on the ground. During taxi, minimal airflow reached the pusher power plant buried behind the cabin. On hot days, temperatures climbed dangerously. The engine would overheat and shut down automatically, silently, without warning. Think about what this means. In a conventional twin, a failed engine announces itself immediately through violent yaw. The pilot knows instantly something is wrong. In the Skymaster, the only indication was a subtle loss of power or a glance at engine gauges. No asymmetric thrust to grab attention. Pilots attempted takeoff without realizing their rear engine had quit during taxi. Cessna responded with a placard that should never have been necessary. Do not initiate single-engine takeoff. The aircraft designed to make engine failures survivable was now failing in ways that made them undetectable. The problems multiplied. The rear propeller operated in turbulent air, disturbed by the front engine and fuselage, reducing its efficiency to roughly 85%. Both propellers created a distinctive noise so loud that owners compared it to having a metal trash can placed over your head while someone beat it with broomsticks. Then came the maintenance nightmare. Cessna's Pawnee division had built single-engine aircraft for years. The Skymaster was exponentially more complex. Everything was packed into the fuselage. Access panels were inadequate. Mechanics cursed the design. The pressurized P337 proved so problematic that Cessna recalled the entire first year's production for complete remanufacture at the factory. Sales peaked in the late 1970s, then began their decline. By 1980, Cessna pulled the plug. Total production reached 2,058 standard, and turbocharged models plus 332 pressurized variants. Add 513 military O2s. Nearly 3,000 aircraft built over 17 years. It sounds like success. It wasn't. The Skymaster never conquered the twin-engine market. Conventional twins continued dominating sales despite their deadly engine-out characteristics. Pilots chose familiar danger over unconventional safety. The aviation industry proved more resistant to change than anyone imagined. In 2005, Adam Aircraft attempted the same centerline thrust concept with their A500 piston twin. It failed commercially before the company collapsed entirely. Today, used Skymasters trade for under $100,000. The maintenance reputation persists. Finding qualified mechanics remains challenging. The Cessna Skymaster remains the most commercially successful push-pull aircraft ever built. Nearly 3,000 flew off the production line. Hundreds still fly today, beloved by owners who understand their quirks and maintain them properly. But the aircraft never achieved what Cessna originally intended. It didn't revolutionize the twin-engine market. It didn't make conventional twins obsolete. It didn't even convince the industry that centerline thrust was the future. The reason reveals something uncomfortable about aviation innovation. The Skymaster eliminated asymmetric thrust perfectly. The physics worked exactly as designed. An engine failure in a Skymaster truly was a non-event compared to a conventional twin. But pilots still found ways to crash them. Different ways. Ways that Cessna's engineers never anticipated. The rear engine that couldn't be seen. The overheating during taxi. The complexity that defeated mechanics. The noise that drove passengers away. The Skymaster taught the industry a brutal lesson. In aviation, solving one deadly problem brilliantly isn't enough. You have to solve all the problems, every single one. The question isn't whether the concept was right. It was. The question is whether anyone will ever try again. If stories like this make you think differently about aviation, subscribe. The next revelation is already waiting.